Now, ladies and gentlemen, moving forward, China is not just giving diseases to the world, it is attacking the US indirectly too. Just when you think that Iran, Israel, and the US war is only about missiles, drones, and oil, there is another layer, one that operates quietly in the shadows. Because even as sanctions tighten and pressure builds, reports suggest that Chinese linked firms are still supplying crucial dual use components, engine batteries, and technology that can power drone production in countries like Iran and Russia. Now, let me flag this point that these are not always big and well known corporations. Often they are smaller. In fact, their structure it is very small, operating below the radar here, but playing a role in a much bigger game. In fact, on March 5th, right in the middle of an active strike between the US, Israel, and Iran, an email reportedly surfaced from a China-based company expressing support for Iran and offering to supply the equipments. Now, whether every such claim is verified or not, the larger concern is real. Global supply chains are not fully controlled. And in modern warfare, you don't just fight on the battlefield. You fight through technology, through logistics, and through networks that stretch across continents. Now, while China is cornering the US, though, there is a very smart gameplay that is happening behind the scenes. A game of diplomacy. As the Strait of Hormuz, it remains partially shut and global trade continues to suffer. Washington is now openly pushing Beijing to step in. Well, just days before a high-stakes summit between Mr. Donald Trump and Mr. Xi Jinping in Beijing, US officials have made it clear that they want China to use its influence over Iran to reopen one of the world's most critical oil routes. In fact, the US Secretary of State, Mr. Marco Rubio, directly called on Chinese leaders to send a very strong message to Tehran. Well, his statement was blunt. He said Iran's action in the Strait, they are isolating it globally, and that China should make that clear. This came as Iran's Foreign Minister, Mr. Abbas Araghchi, he visited Beijing, where he met Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Note the timing here. The timing is not coincidence. It shows that diplomacy is now moving parallel with military escalation. And the reason is simple here. China has a lot at stakes. Unlike the United States, China's economy is deeply dependent on energy supplies passing through this narrow passage, the Strait of Hormuz. A significant portion of its crude oil and natural gas imports, it comes from the West Asia. So when Iran restrict movement in the strait, it does not just hurt global market, it directly hits Beijing. And that is why the US officials are arguing that it is China's own interest to step in and push Iran to ease its control. And at the very same time, Washington is also trying to ensure that China does not block international action. Well, at the United Nations Security Council, the US has been working to pass resolution aimed at reopening the strait and condemning Iran's action here. But for China, along with Russia, they had earlier vetoed a similar move, if you remember, arguing that it unfairly targeted Iran without addressing the role of the US and Israeli strikes that triggered the whole conflict. Now, behind the closed doors, American diplomats, they are just trying to persuade Beijing to change its stance.